Peace. Little brief message here. Look, man, give yourself some grace. Give yourself grace. I ain't talking about the grace when when we grew up, like say your grace. No, give yourself grace. If you're not familiar with grace, go Google it. Google it. Meaning just give yourself. Let me see. How could I substitute a word for grace? What could I say? What's a word that I can use? Be lenient, patient. Grace, be more, gentle with yourself. I said patience. Be more, it's a word that's coming to more delicate. We know what it is to have people fumble us or not know what it is. We know what it is to be in the care of people who really not knowing the importance of our well-being mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I talk about this, I speak about this. And one of the most challenging things is, like, again, I express to people, like, look, this being a man or woman, just simply being yourself, whether you're a guardian, caregiver, whatever, that shit don't come with no manual, bro. It don't come with a manual. Did you hear what I said? It don't come with a manual. This don't come with life don't even come with a manual. Because we're trying to unlearn and relearn, and most of what we're unlearning has been basically a lie. Foundations upon lies. Found many different versions and faces of ourselves that we have to unlearn, discard, almost simply rid ourselves of, because we're trying to. And in that process, you're relearning, you're revising, recreating, revamping, being restored. You know how old storage units have a lot of stuff in there, and it's old and outdated. Okay, so what do you do when you update something? Okay, all the old data, all the old things that representing the old version of that thing or whatever it is, it has to be discarded. It has to be removed. But still see value in it. What I mean by that, giving yourself grace is like still see the value in who you are, who you become. It's okay to reflect. I always use the car as a reference. Like the car is like, you have the rear view mirrors. Then you have the biggest, the two biggest mirrors are the one in the, the rear view mirrors, but the two biggest windows are the one in front and the one in back. Now, if it was meant for us to drive backwards, then we would. It's not to say, the whole duration, then we would. And it's not to say that, that is impossible, but, that's something you would definitely have to master. But there's a reason why the steering wheel or the wheel is in the front. That being said is because, when you're in the driver's seat of your life, when you're in the driver's seat, then you are in full control of, said vehicle. The vehicle is like a representation of your vessel, your body, where you're going. And I'm just coming up with this analogy right now. And then if the vehicle is your body, then you driving is like the soul or the spirit that's steering or guiding wherever it's going. Now in life, you have the rearview mirrors. Okay, so in the rearview mirror, I don't know if yes, it says objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Now, one mirror gives off this illusion. That rearview mirror gives off an illusion. But isn't that funny? Like when you're driving, where you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of where you're going. Yes, in a moment where we want to reflect, review, revitalize things, revisit the past, and certain things where it shows us why we still have to put that motherfucker in drive and go forward. It's the reason why it says reverse. Because sometimes we have to reverse to move, to drive forward. And that's okay. That's okay. Because it's life. But don't ever beat yourself up. That's why I say give yourself grace. we're all, a lot of us are unlearning the patterns of where we've been around very abusive, narcissistic, controlling people, templates, governmental structures that's run off greed, self-righteousness, amongst other things that have kept people in a loop or kept people in a place of just feeling stagnant. And so once you're breaking out of these social norms and these illusions and so forth, you realize it's been you all along. You take full control of being in the driver's seat and not allowing people to drive you crazy. Did you hear what I said? You are in the driver's seat now in your life, and now you are in full control of being in the driver's seat. You know what's so vital about that now? Is that you call the shots now. You make your own rules. You have your own belief system. You develop your own belief system. See, there was a time where, you was in the back seat. Mama say, sit back, put your seat back on, do this and do that and do that, so forth and so forth. And, it served its purpose. She was doing her best. He or she was doing her best and so forth. Because, we didn't get to that awareness of being what it was to be in, not just control, but to be fully aware. And that took consistency. That took mastering. That took awareness around, what it is we're here to do and how we're here to do it. So, that being said, the beauty of all this is that, again, give yourself some grace, man. I love these messages because we didn't grow up around folks that really had any type of awareness around their well-being. They wasn't even in full aware of their life or in the driving seat of their life. And what I mean by that is because a lot of them money ran their life. The relationships, things that they never acknowledged or healed from or went inward to see, their trauma ran their life. Their wounds ran their life. And they can no longer hide it. So now, it's just very apparent now that, as we become more aware, that nothing can be hidden. Nothing can be hidden. And so, the awareness now is like seeing the beauty of now being at peace. Because see, I can acknowledge and say I wasn't at peace when I allowed other people's decisions, other people's opinions about me, other people's way how they viewed me or whatever. All those things when we were younger, when we had these influences around us that had where we had, almost idolized the ones that we first bear witness to when we were growing up. And then we became very aware of who they wasn't and began to see their mask fall. And then we took on these patterns and didn't even realize who we were becoming. And so in that, it's like now we have a responsibility to ourselves. And then now we have a responsibility to those around us in a way of how we really move, and are we really more intentional with how we're moving? Because before we wasn't really aware. I could attest to that. I could take full accountability in that. And one thing I was expressing to someone is that you can't undo the past. It's very difficult for a lot of us to let go of certain things because it rears this ugly head, or it's that ugly truth or that uncomfortable truth comes up, and we want to ignore it. We want to keep pushing it down, and as I've said before, that's repressing the emotion, the memories, and so forth. These things come up. These things come up for a reason, for us to be more aware of how it is we operate, embrace, observe the emotion, the memory. How do we respond to that repressed memory of that relationship, that partnership, that businessship, life in general? Are we going to be the trendsetter? Are we going to be the one to learn how to navigate through, even when we're not knowing what's on the other side? Or it's almost like being technically lost at sea, but then the stars remind you, are you really lost? I said it's almost like being lost at sea. A lot of us feel that way right now. You're talking about feeling like it's in the middle of a fucking apocalypse. The world is ending, and it is as the one as we knew it. The elders not all, but the elders as we knew that was supposed to deliver the message. And, you know, a lot of us now are the future of what the world, what we have to, what we're being given to share, you know, in our experience. And that's the thing. Our experience is totally different than these elders. Our experience is totally different. Our traumas are different. What we've experienced is different. But that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us unique. I started to pay attention that, you know, when I realized a lot of these elders never talked about their shit. Or they never had the space to. And then, you know, some of us are here to talk about it. It's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. But you have to have those uncomfortable conversations. How are we going to move forward if we don't have them? You got to have those, you know, for instance, like, my mom and dad didn't have those uncomfortable conversations until like after 30-something years. And, you know, some of them are so set in their ways. Again, some people are growing older. They're not growing wiser. So the wiser us, or the ones that are growing, having knowledge of what our moms and dad did or someone else did, we become wiser by applying it, by acknowledging it, and then moving forward on it. And then you're supposed to do what they didn't do. You're supposed to do what they didn't do in your own unique way. And we don't have to feel shame and guilt around it. You don't have to guilt trip people. You don't have to throw it in their face. You can stand up in your truth, but you don't have to throw it up in their face. That's my message. You don't have to boast. You don't have to do what they did. You can just be fucking confident in the fact of you breaking generational curses. And in that, you got to give yourself some fucking grace, bro. I'm telling you, you have to give yourself grace. I had to learn that. You know, as I start to become more aware and deeper, you know, really getting deeper into what it is I'm feeling, what it is I'm becoming more aware of, there's a responsibility to that. To whom is given, much is required. There's going to be much required of you as you come into deeper awareness of yourself, deeper awareness of these generational curses and patterns that you're bringing. There's a responsibility to that shit. To whom is given, much is required. You were giving said knowledge, but you also were given the tools for the wisdom. That's where the discipline comes in. Let me speak to my young men. That's discipline in, you know, realizing that you can see a woman, and, you know, you can be attracted on her appearance. You know, and not to mention, what about her personality? Persona in Latin means mask, or, you know, what about her, who she is? And then most importantly, going back to who she is, her character. I think that's one thing I realized throughout from learning, knowing is half the battle. Applying it, I said knowing is half the battle. But that discipline comes in, young men out there, that discipline comes in, you know, I was expressing to one young man, I was like, yeah, you're young, you're using that thing downstairs that you use, you know, but you do know you can create a child from that. You know, some men not really having these conversations with young men. You do know that the importance of, you know that seed that's within your staff, or that thing you just throwing around, player. You do know that there's a life that you can create. And the reason I'm saying that to you is because that's the beauty in, you know, you having that, you know, that tool downstairs. There's a beauty in that. Not to abuse it, because we grew up in a culture where we were taught to abuse it. Not see the importance of creating life from that shit. You can create life, and when you create life, it ain't just about you no more, homeboy. And then the importance of that, the partner that you choose from that, homeboy and homegirl. And some of us are going through lessons with that. Some of us had to attract said partners to go through those karmic lessons and see the importance in that specifically. To see the underlining, or the understanding, and comprehend and understand, to realize, like, wow, especially you that are generational curse breakers, seeing the importance of, like, how you, when that child comes in, or, you know, if you choose to have kids, you are a ripple effect. That means your actions and what you do and how you're aware. And are you going to teach your son the same thing? Will you really want your son to walk in the same path that you've been doing? Your daughters, will you really want them? No, you don't. And And even if some of you do, it's because a lot of you, what I've seen is you've abandoned you, or your inner child has been abandoned, or you don't truly see the innocence in yourself. You don't really see the love within yourself. You know, you've been disconnected from your inner child or your inner essence, or you've just been completely disconnected due to whatever trauma blockages or whatever blockages that you've experienced, or whatever you inherited from your mother and or father, patriarchally and matriarchally. And so the higher awareness of this is, again, a world that we're creating where there is more awareness around how it is our daughters and sons are going to bring forth other lives into this world. Isn't that fucking important? Why wouldn't that be just as important as getting some money, chasing some money? What about the awareness around our kids growing up in integrity, growing up and having morals and principles? I'm not saying we're doing everything perfect, because I'm far from it. In the Most High eyes, I may be perfect, but due to this human experience and due to the fact of, like, I'm here to learn lessons just like you are. I inherited things from my father, and I inherited things from my mother. And let me tell you something. Even as I become more aware as a man and as a father, I start to realize, like, wow, hold on, man. These habits I didn't even realize I had until I became more aware, like, oh, shit. This could have been something that either I experienced that I had no knowledge of. Someone and I was talking about that. Sometimes we don't even be aware that we have picked up patterns or unconscious patterns of what our mother and father has done, whether in the womb, our mother's in the womb, or our fathers demonstrated when they were together, and they never talked to us about it. What did our mothers and fathers really go through? It amazes me how, you know, the world want to paint this picture to, like, you know, how we've been seeing all these, oh, you know, the family that's usually the happiest has all these things and so forth. But bro, that's far from it, bro. I don't see it so much to where it's like I can pick up on it. I had to have those uncomfortable conversations with my daughter, and even, you know, again, the beauty of now seeing the balance with my son. It's like, yo, I'm sitting here like, it really highlights now the father wound. I wasn't even gonna get into this, but you know, it's just coming out. The father wound, meaning that, you know, y'all heard me talk about the mother wound, but I'm talking about the father wound now. The father wound really highlights the fact of the absence of a father and how I really have to create my own fucking identity now. Did you hear what I said? When the importance and how vital the mother and the father is, both are vital. And the reason both are vital, when it comes to the mother gives something that the mother gives something spiritually. It's not that the father doesn't offer things that protection physically, but from my perspective, I feel the mother offers something internally that if the father isn't aware of his own internal femininity and so forth, then how can he balance that out when it comes to offering that said protection, security, and so forth? Because I've always said that men don't just offer with this fucking illusion of how they tell y'all the men just offer money and all that like this. No, I am a man, and I realize it's becoming more emotionally intelligent and start to remove the blockages from the mother wound. And you know, start to dive deep more into the feminine aspect of who I am internally. I realize that the father also offers nurturing. He also offers love and, you know, nurturing and emotional support and so forth. That's what has been robbed, or, you know, the distortion is that. That's what, you know, again, that when I see a lot of women who are wounded or going through something, that's what I realize, that their thinking is just protection. He physically protecting me and then providing. No, a man provides more than that when he really becomes more in tune with who he is. And when he becomes more in tune with who he is, he realizes that he offers way more than just what the world has been telling him of his worth. See, that's the thing. A lot of us don't know our worth when it really comes to the fact of like what we're supposed to offer, because we again, being that I grew up around, I'm trying to position this phone. Being that I know I grew up around women that were wounded, and as I was given this wisdom and knowledge of becoming more in tune, I started to realize that was the message that I had to share. Is that again, women also offer protection in a physical way. Women offer things. We all offer things. It's just, again, the distortion of what the world only perceives what men and women have to offer. When a man is not there physically and has to go do his due diligence or whatever, the woman is a physical protection for the kids. It's just like a lioness. You ain't just gonna walk up to no cub. The woman is a physical protection. I hope I won't cover the mic. But anywho, the woman is a physical protection. But she still also is a physical protection when it comes to man as well. And I was telling someone, I said the restoration that's happening when you hear about the rise of the divine feminine, that's the divine feminine in all of us. The wounded masculine has also been in all of us. And the wounded masculine has a lot to do with when the divine feminine became, or what we have seen orchestrated in, leading up to now, is a wounded femininity and a wounded masculine. So again, dark gives birth to the light. So a wounded feminine had to give birth to the wounded masculine. And that's not in a sense of man and woman. That's on both parts. You have men who are wounded in their femininity and masculine. You have women that are wounded in their, depending on how they present themselves. Yes, it can be more woundedness in the masculine aspect for a woman. And it all depends on if she had more of the absence of a father, or a lot of things dealing with what the masculine represents in the physical aspect. But also, again, the mother could have portrayed, abusive behaviors in her actions, because again, masculinity is, in the action, it's assertive or logically. It's a lot of things dealing with what we see physically, or dealing with things that are the opposite of the spiritual have. But they're one and the same. And so again, the wholeness of all of that is showing like how we, I was telling someone like how you see, in order for the divine feminine to rise, we have to see the divine woundedness in us all. I mean, the wounded femininity. And that's in its totality in the wounded masculine as well. We have to see what has been breeding or enabling women to be the way they are. And that's why men have to recognize it and women have to recognize it, the wounded aspect of who they are. And it all depends. Again, it can show up differently for everybody, because you could have had a 2-parent home, and a lot of us had, or some of us have single-parent home. So that energy would show up differently. It would be portrayed differently in a lot of us. So that's son, but so with that, again, it's the awareness around it, like when you're able to see if you grew up in a single-parent home, or if you grew up in, both parents could have been there, but again, there could have never been no emotional support. So the perspective could be different all the way around, but it's still truth to it. There's still some truth to whatever it is. And with that, it's really the acceptance. I've been, I hear, or I've heard people talk about forgiveness. But again, acceptance is one thing. Accepting to realize that people may not ever change in maybe this lifetime or not. But acceptance of how you should just realize, or come to that acceptance or realization, self-realization, like, okay, deep breath. I got me. I'm going to be all right. I'm secure. Because a lot of our belief systems are not even our own. A lot of our belief systems came from what the world has told us to believe about ourselves. And this is why I say you have to give yourself grace, because again, just using my perspective on life, when I see how the world has portrayed how darker men are, when I seen how, and that's through education, structure, governmental things, anything, and to tell myself I have to accept my world rather than thinking I got to go out here and prove to the world that this is how darker men are, or this is how, this and that. No, it's not about proving anything. It's about accepting yourself in your world, that you're at peace with that. And that's how you become more at peace, is that accept in your world how you want to display, whether it's your sexuality, your sexual preference, how you want to dress. Be confident in that shit. Because the world, or whatever we have heard from other people, have come from the most insecure, unstable, emotionally, mentally, spiritually people. Structures that have not implemented self-awareness, confidence, self-empowerment, things regarding self-awareness around how we show up, our well-being, these careers, these corporations, all these things. There is nothing. And that's why you will have the challenges. You will have people that will fight for said systems. And that's okay. And they'll fight with it as it go out. And they'll go out with it. So a lot of us are in the place where we just have to have grace with ourselves in these transitions, in these moments where some of us we're coming out of our cocoon, and that's going to be that's going to be an evolution throughout most of your life. And when you are called to be something, or you're called to be in this position, you're gonna experience things emotionally, mentally, most likely spiritually and physically. It don't just happen just physically. It happens internally. So again, give yourself grace. Rest. Chill. It's gonna be all right. That shit's still gonna be there. Just give yourself grace. Get through it the best way you know how, but give yourself grace. Because again, as you start to shift, and I've learned this, is that you will have people pulling and tugging, whether it's on you energetically or want more of you, because they can sense it. They can feel it. Even when you don't think they can sense it. They know it. And with that being said, it's like now you have to be the one, again, to stand in integrity. Because emotions don't change the truth. And your truth is your truth. Everyone else's truth is theirs. So the acceptance in how you move has to be with the fact of like, okay, they may not come with me, or I have to move on, or this has to be what it is. And I have to, whether I have to grieve through it, or, however I got to get through it. And it's important to surround yourself with people who will encourage you to do things as such, to do what's in the best, that has your best interest, that are genuinely supportive. Because a lot of us are coming and getting out of things energetically where we've closing out a lot of things karmically, these deep lessons, so we can now realize like, wow, I'm worthy now of these partnerships or relationships or business-ships that are healthy, that reciprocate, what it is that I'm aligned with, or my belief system, my value system. And you deserve that. You just got to know to accept within, and then realize that everyone can't go where you're going. Peace and bliss. Shalom.